Hello, Tensei. Welcome to Spirit School. I hope you're doing well. 2026 is the year that I enter my 13th year of mediumship development. My 9th year of podcasting, my 8th year of teaching online and in person. And it's been a really beautiful journey. Last year, we filmed a video project that talks about mediumship, the healing path of mediumship, in particular, my path around mediumship. So last year was really spent reflecting, not only reflecting, but kind of creating stories about the experiences that I've had. If you attend any of my classes, you know that I often say the only prerequisite to mediumship is a life well lived. And I feel like for the past 3 years, this world has required me to live fully. All emotions, all experiences, the highs, the lows, the shadow, the light, the expansion, the contraction, all of it. And it has been messy and it has been hard. But every time I go to show up and teach, it's like it all makes sense. It's like, oh, this isn't just for me. It's not until you experience it that you can truly understand it. And that really is the path of mediumship as well. It's experiential. I often say it doesn't matter how many podcasts you listen to, classes you take, books you consume. The understanding is in the practice. And those of us who are drawn to the mediumship development path are looking for a sense of understanding and also a sense of usefulness. So I often say to the spirit world, use my life as a teaching tool. Use my lived experiences as opportunities to bring forward healing and inspiration to those who need it, who come to see me because on some level they are experiencing grief, or on other levels they are curious about these capacities within themselves. So every time I go through my hardships, as hard as they are, as colorful as they are, and as sticky as they are to go through, I still go through them fully because I do want to bring back the higher learnings and the teachings. Admittedly, over these past 12 years, there was a point in time where I was considering retiring from mediumship, from the craft of offering readings, mostly because I fell in love with teaching so much, with the birth of Spirit School Online, the retreats, the people that I was meeting. I just really fell in love with it. And I call my program the initiation, my training program for mediumship, for a reason, because it is an initiation. And I do believe that when you are initiated, the calling will come back. You will be called back. I have veered off the mediumship development path at least 3 times in these past 13 years. And every single time, Spirit comes and grabs me and says, there's more to do. There's more to understand. And I think that is what has sustained me for these past 13 years in mediumship, is that the unfolding of understanding never seems to end. It's like every time you open up a door, 10 more doors appear before you. It's the ever unfolding lotus, if you will. And as somebody who has moved through life quite fluid, I've noticed that my pattern has been one of being a little bit obsessive of understanding something. And then once I gain an understanding of it, I move on to the next fixation. I discovered really early on that the mediumship development path was one of personal development and healing. And I think that too is what has sustained me on this path. Before I got into mediumship and my own lived experience, healing was not really in my vocabulary. It was not in my radar. I was curious about mediums and I was curious about spirituality, but for me, in those early spiritual days, it was more about paranormal or ghosts or the things that I seen on TV or the scary movies. So healing and mediumship for me didn't really live together, but you also have to understand that I didn't experience my first experience of grief until 2020. So my context of mediumship and my need for mediumship wasn't as much about the healing as it was about a curiosity and a pulling. It was very much a pulling. But one thing that I noticed and I recognized as the years went on in my mediumship is every time I did something to build my self-esteem or stretch myself and do something scary and it works out better than I could have expected, or I do something scary and it lands exactly as I thought it did, but I'm so happy I did it because I don't want those regrets in my life. This like maturation process that we go through as we develop to become conduits for the spirit world is such a beautiful path. In truth, I'm obsessed with teaching mediumship from the framework and context of personal development. I often say I teach you mediumship through your humanity. I've had different students reflect back to me, you teach us how to be human on a mystical path. And I suppose what made me want to come back is I just feel like everything has changed. The needs have changed in the world. The pace of the world has changed. The dynamics of the world have changed. But one thing that has not changed is the need for mediumship. We are still experiencing grief and loss. So I've been really conscientious in these past 3 years that I have been very much moving through the shadowscapes of my life and getting glimpses of the light, but really being mostly in the dark since 2023. That's how I feel like we are collectively right now, mostly in the dark, but there is light. The spirit world loves to show me as us walking around this human experience, especially those who consider themselves light workers, healers, space holders, whatever language resonates with you, that we are just simply clear quartz crystals that are amplifying the good into the world. Now, there is both light and shadow in me, to be sure, and there's light and shadow in each and every one of you. So my conscientious prayer then to the spirit world is very much illuminate the good in me. Amplify the light in me. And so it is. I've been playing with this phrase that Spirit brought into my awareness in November, maturation process. And I talk about spiritual maturity. That's one of my core values, spiritual maturity. But they kept talking about a maturation process. And I kept thinking about my own spiritual and human maturation process through the art of mediumship. And I started looking at it through this framework of the energy centers, right? One of the first things that we learn in spiritual development is chakras, auras, spirit guides, right? Like these are kind of like 101 teachings when it comes into the spiritual space. So I started looking at mediumship through these energy centers and the archetypes and the symbology and the teachings and the depth that comes if you look at these 7 energy centers. What could it speak to us about mediumship? What could it teach us? What could it unfold for us? So in December, I started teaching an in-person circle here at HQ. And it started with 14, and now every Saturday we gather, and it sells out every single week. There's 30 of us that gather every Saturday under the intention of mediumship. And I've been bringing forward these teachings through these energy centers and their teachings, and it's just been so deep. And every single class, I have 6 to 10 pages of notes. I can't say all that in a class. So this is where I've been leaning on my inspirational mediumship, my teaching, my professing, my lecturing. Spirit, these are all the things that I considered when it comes to looking at mediumship through the lens of these beautiful divine energy centers that do really cross a lot of different cultures and spiritual teachings. And I just sit there and Spirit knows who's in the room. Spirit knows who's listening to this podcast, right? Spirit knows and will direct to who needs to hear what. And it really is an unfolding in these classes of wisdom when it comes to how you need to develop as a medium, your own personal, intimate connection with the spirit world, and then, of course, being of service for the world of spirit. And I feel like even 13 years in, this understanding of mediumship continues to unfold in ways that just leave me in awe. And I always just feel like I'm getting started. Always. I always feel like that. So I decided to take these teachings online. That's what this round of the initiation's about. The 13th round of my program on the initiation is about, understanding mediumship in a deeper way through these teachings of these energy centers. And it's been so fulfilling, so fun. So I wanted to come back to the podcast because people have been asking me for it. And I miss you guys too. It's been a little while, but I've been processing. A lot more of my life is going to video over audio. I have another podcast I'm working on that will probably launch at the end of the year. So I've been in this creative process while I've been integrating and getting used to doing my work in front of video. Even this podcast episode, I'm stretching myself. I usually just don't even have my camera on. I'm just speaking into the mic. But this time I'm like, no, I'm going to get used to being on video because the future of my life is going to be one of video. But I felt inspired because the teachings have been landing, and the people who have been with me for so long, people in the initiation some of them are in it for the 4th, 5th time right now because every round is so different. And people are reflecting back that even my own teachings have matured. I have been going through my own maturation process. So when I'm teaching about these energy centers and what they can share with us about mediumship to deepen our understanding of mediumship, what they are showing me is a maturation process of human spirit, soul, and ego. And it makes everything just feel worthwhile, especially when things are so hard right now. So I wanted to leave you with the first 3 chakras. I think they're about 7 to 10 minute clips of each class. Each class is 90 minutes. They're lectures. I tell people I teach how I like to learn, which is through lectures. And then you go have your experiences and that will deepen your understanding. But before I go, if you feel like these teachings help you, if you feel like they support you, I teach every single week. Every single week I'm teaching somewhere, either in the collective, the initiation. I've been posting more videos on my YouTube. And I have the Spirit School retreat coming up, which has a really deep program. I felt compelled to create an experience that got people recovering from everything that has been going on this past year to getting you excited about your life again with true spiritual sacred direction. So I just wanted to drop the session titles to you and then end this episode on 30 minutes of my teachings on mediumship and understanding the deepening of the mediumship through these energy centers. So on night 1, we gather at the Spirit School retreat under what is called the threshold. On Tuesday, we go into 3 sessions, morning, afternoon, and evening. The first one being Threads of Belonging. The second one, Earth as an Oracle. And at night, a return to stillness, where we'll be using the lake and the element of sound. On Wednesday, we are guided by spirit. This is our spirit day, guided by the light, the elements of spirit communication. And at night, I'm really excited for this one, the Dreamweaver's night. This is pajama themed, slumber party themed. On the Thursday, it's all about the soul, the return to the self, where the soul sends you, the instructions for what comes next. And we're going to end the retreat on Spirit School's Mystics Night, which includes our trivia night. And we're going to be going into a spirit salon, just connecting with one another, having fun, ending on an expansive note. So these are going to be our sessions this upcoming June in the West Coast Forest of British Columbia. We have spaces open for solo, duo, and slumber party rooms. If any of these speak to you, if the teachings speak to you, I will be hosting 10 sessions through this week that are meant to get you deeper, developed, restored, and excited about your life again. I hope you enjoy these teachings, friend. Leave me a comment, share with your friends if you find them impactful, and I'll see you next time. One of the things that our root chakra will ask us to look at is this sense of belonging and lack thereof. So Caroline Mace will often talk about the root chakra as our center that's connected to our tribal affiliations, right? Our tribes, the communities that we kind of like come in with. And I know that there are so many of us that are drawn to this type of path because it is such an incredibly uncommon path that we can feel like that proverbial black sheep, right? So I was listening to this song right before I started teaching my IRL class on this topic, and there was this lyric that just kind of like opened up my heart, and I was like, is this not like a root chakra lyric? And I'll post the link to the song in the replay of this, but it said, I am not the black sheep, I am the blueprint, right? I am not the black sheep, I am the blueprint. So when it comes to the spiritual space, I always felt like maybe I didn't belong in the certain places that I was in, the communities and the circles. And I ended up creating a path for myself, that I created spaces that I wanted to belong in, right? That was kind of like the impetus for spirit school. So if I can just say a message to you all here, you all belong here. Okay, you don't have to question that when it comes to any of my spaces. If you were drawn here, I truly believe that spirit is my agent and spirit is my algorithm, and there's something that connects us. There's something that's similar between us. And so just the fact that you are here and that you knew to be here, I believe that there's an essence of belonging here and now. But I know that it's also a very common trait for people who are drawn to be healers, who are drawn to this service work, that they have often experienced some sort of disenfranchisement, some sort of rupture within their family line. Do you understand this? Please drop me an emoji if this is you. I know for me, it wasn't so much as ruptures as it was being the first to do all the things. Right? Like I was the first to graduate. I was the first to leave the city of Vancouver. I was the first to travel. I was the first entrepreneur. I was the first to safely claim my indigeneity without being, the fear of being sent to like a school or a hospital. Right? Like the first. So all of that alone is kind of set up for me to be like, I don't belong anywhere. Like even when I got audited last year, it's like I didn't fit any of the tick boxes for the CRA, which is our version of the IRS, right? Like I fit no boxes. I just applied for the bespoke market. We're iconic at the bespoke market. This is going to be our 6th time going. And I didn't fit any of the boxes on the application. I had to put us under like homewares, right? Like, so it's like, I'm so used to not fitting in the box. So one of the things that you'll have to heal that shit for is this sense of belonging, and understanding that that sense of belonging really is part of your inner world experience, right? Can you create within yourself a sense of belonging everywhere you go, within like your own skin, within your own essence? The second thing that we might be asked on our human journey to heal when it comes to what could come up within the root chakra is around humiliation. Oof, this is a big one in mediumship. How vulnerable it is to sit here, open up your awareness, and just have the audacity to say what you think, you see, feel, know, hear, sense, smell, taste. And then the only thing that could validate you as a person's validation, like what a slippery slope we kind of get into around this, right? Because we need validation. It's like, yes, I understand this, but so many of us like just have such a wound around failing in front of others. Can you accept that? I know that this was probably one of the bigger ones that I personally had to heal and work through. I used to be so envious in my first few years of like different mediumship friends that I had and I met along the way that like started around the same time of me, but they like hit up Instagram right away and like they're doing stories and they were just so willing to develop in the public eye. I was like, oh, that could never be me. Oh, that could never be me. I'm like, I need to know what I'm doing before I go out there. And that was the path that I took. I took a very different path, and none is better or worse. Right? None is better or worse. This is a personal path of self-realization, but the path that I needed, because I didn't have self-esteem. Self-esteem wasn't even in my vocabulary in 2013. It wasn't even in my vocabulary yet. And I didn't have it. And I didn't know that until I stepped into the mediumship arena. And this is where I really built my self-esteem, was in this space. But man, what a vulnerable ask spirit has us work with what other people might think of us. I remember the first time in the corporate space, somebody asked me to come speak to 30 people about my quitting smoking journey. I was like, oh yeah, easy. Because I'm very personable. I can walk into any room. I insert myself in any public situation. I've never been a shy girl. So there was nothing to lead me to believe that anything but good things would happen. And I stood in front of this group who were all my colleagues. I knew them all. I hung out with them all. There was only 30 of us. And all of a sudden, the world goes black. And when I came to, I look at my friend Tana's eyes. She's like, are you okay? And I looked at her. I'm like, where are we? Like, why is everyone looking at me? I had complete amnesia of where we were, and I didn't know what stage fright was at that time. And oh my goodness, how akin humiliation and stage fright were. And that was a piece of myself I really had to heal. So then we're always trying to restore balance. I want you to have that term in your heart, restore balance. How do I restore balance in this moment? When we get to the heart, we're going to talk about ethics, and we'll talk a lot more about this. But how do we restore balance? So I always look at like, well, what's the opposite experience of humiliation? Right? How do I bring balance to like what I'm experiencing? Any words come up for you? Adoration, acceptance. So you all have to learn, like if you work with me, vocabulary is huge for me. I'm always going to nerd out on words. So we're really going to nerd out on words. Humility. I like that one. Humiliation is limelight, compassion. Yeah. And so for me, the word that really came up to balance humiliation was dignity. 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 What a word. Dignity. Right? So what do we do to be dignified? And I can't believe I forgot to say this IRL, but boundaries. Right? Like having boundaries can really help with your dignity. The spirit world actually has a reference for me around dignity, and it's a very clairsentient, which we'll talk about in next week in the sacral. But spirit makes me go like this. I always place my hand on one another, and the message for my client is, your loved one wants to thank you for allowing me to pass with dignity, and this always shows me that they gotta pass at home. It's quite a beautiful word that kind of takes me down this nice evidential and this message, right? Messages are highly evidential. Thank you for allowing me to stay at home. It was rooted in dignity. Thank you. And they show me by making me go like this. And this reference ties even deeper to my death doula school, where we got pamphlets on how to take care of people at home when they're passing. And that was actually the cover of it. Right? So let this be a lesson for you that the spirit world, and this is why I say the only prerequisite to mediumship is a life well lived, because the spirit world will use all the things that you're consuming, all the things that you're experiencing to relate. Again, relate is a root chakra word. Relate that to the person that you're working with. And we'll talk about relation when we talk about our spirit. For the people who are looking at moving from practicing mediumship into becoming professional mediumship, what you'll meet at the root chakra is the relationship to this work and money. One of the things that we'll have to look at when it comes to the root chakra, things that we can look at healing on our way to becoming clear channels for the spirit world, is our inherent beliefs systems. Right? That is one of the things that we come into the world that's weaved into our being, right? Beliefs are very root chakra. Like if you look at the ascension of going from belief to faith, that's a spiritual maturation process in itself. So when we're in the root chakra, we're really looking at our inherent beliefs. Right? What were we kind of born into based off of land, cultural lineage? So when we think about our human experience, and as our empirical brain, our human brain starts to develop, what they say about 25, we start to fully develop our frontal cortex. This is where choice and consequence comes into play, because now we have consciousness, we have the brain power, we have the lived experience to start choosing what we believe to be true for ourselves in a way that supports us and how we want to live and how we want to be. So it is usually around this time that we start looking at our inherent beliefs. So one of your assignments for this week is just looking at, what does my culture, what does my lineage, what does my family say about mediumship, about spirit communication? So that's what I mean. We're talking about a maturation process, about what was instilled upon us versus what do we consciously choose for ourselves to be true. And this kind of segues us into our spiritual selves, right? So as we kind of like ascend through our mediumship experience and we look at the root chakra in a very spiritual way, I want to talk about relationality. The prayer of the sacral is this mine? Sometimes when I say, is it mine? By way of doing, I'm shedding everything that is not, just by declaring that. Because what I'm bringing to awareness, this is also the first space of awareness in our human experience, right? This is our first space of awareness. I become aware that I'm only carrying what is mine to carry. Right? And so that sometimes is enough for me to disengage from somebody else's emotional experience. And then sometimes I'll let myself get into their experience fully and take care of myself, AKA repair after. Because that's going to happen too. And then you can be more protective of your boundaries when you know. But sometimes you don't know what your boundaries are until you're in them. And then truthfully, if I'm being spiritually mature enough to tell you, it will be a moving target. Like your boundaries will change and evolve as you change and evolve, right? There's certain times where life, being a mom, asks a lot of me. I don't have all the capacity in the world to be as in contact with everybody as other times when everyone's doing good and healthy and all those fun things. So sometimes I have to put out of office response and close my DMs and do these things to take care of myself because my capacity is just absolutely stretched. That's honoring my energy. Right? So I want you to see the sacral as like your first point of energy, especially when we're talking about clairsentience. I will never start a reading until I sense them first. It's like I get to feel like I touched heaven being in this capacity. That's the benefit of it. The shadow quality of it is it can be more draining because it's using your emotions and your emotional awareness. Can you accept that? I've known mediums who are like, no, I just do claircognizance. I just say what I know. I get it. I get that too, but there are benefits to this as well. So that's what we're going to be practicing today is like the presence of spirit. And I think one of you mentioned it last time as well, that I was like, oh, mom's side and dad's side. That's all clairsentient for me. So I'll take you through a bit of a story, like my journey with this. So I started working with my guide saying, I need to feel you. That's the only thing I really trust is a physical feeling. And I sat at that for quite some time. I sat at that and I sat with my guides a couple times a week. How do I know you're here? I want to feel you. And I started to become aware of this space on my back. I can't reach it. And that's how come it's a really fun space to have it be, because I can't actually touch this space. But it's almost like where you would imagine angel wings coming out. And it feels like almost like a vibration of a bell, like a doorbell. That's the best description I can give you. And I was like, oh, is that you? Is that you? Is that you? Okay, I think that's you. And then it started happening when I wasn't even looking for it. I would be in the car and I would feel it. I was like, oh, that's you. And then I would notice all these eagles and like these hawks. And I started having these great experiences. And then that became, long story short, years of this, that's my 100% sign that the guides are near. So that's how I really started my maturing from belief to faith, right? Maturing from belief to faith. It actually started with, I need to feel you to believe this is real. That's how doubting I was. So by developing in this way, when I started sitting, I started noticing a feeling on my body. It's like pressure. And I would open up my awareness to spirit. I would feel my heart open. We're going to talk about this a lot in the heart week. I would feel my heart open and my throat. Both of these things would activate at the same time. And all of a sudden I would feel spirit around me. And I could feel them. I could feel their presence. It's like even if you had a kid standing behind you and you couldn't see them, you could feel their presence. That's what I get. And I started noticing, oh, everyone from mom's side of the family seems to come over here. And everyone from dad's side of the family seems to come over here. So I started experimenting with that. How true is that? And it's about 85, 90%. It really is. Where I've limited myself in this is like, where do the friends go? Where do the friends go? So that's something that I've had to work out on my own, admittedly. And that comes in with a knowing. That's where I couple my clairs, what I feel and what I know. So what they'll do is, a male, because it's dad's side, but this is a friend. So that's how they'll do it for me. So then earlier today, I'm sitting there, and one thing that Spirit does for me a lot, because I think it's a sign I pick up a lot, is all of a sudden my left arm will go numb. Literally numb. I couldn't lift it. And I know that's their sign for stroke. So then I started noticing that there were some people I would sit in front of and I would feel like I'm in trouble. I'm like, I'm in trouble right now. Why am I in trouble? And I would think, because I do have anxiety, raise your hands if you suffer with anxiety. I live with anxiety, I've accepted it, okay? And I'm thriving. I just get this sometimes, that's all. So I thought it was me. And then I started noticing patterns. I was like, every time I feel like I'm in trouble, I'm working with someone who committed suicide. Oh, these people feel like they're in trouble because of what they did. So then I started noticing, after, again, dozens of readings, because the more you do it, the clearer this gets. There's no shortcuts, guys, right? The more you do it, you start to see patterns. You start to see, and then the next one you go in, you're like, okay, I have someone here who takes responsibility for their passing. Do you understand this? Yeah. Okay. That's how I say suicide, by the way, in an ethical way, in a non-triggering way. And then as soon as I get it, it leaves me. And then the next thing comes in. And short story long, over 13 years of doing this sentiently, and I always start with the sentience because it's the realest thing for me. You can't fake a feeling, right? They have a whole map around my body. And that's what happens with my students. When I'm mentoring, I can get into the body and see what my client is experiencing. I know where their blocks are. I know where they're stuck. I know when they're in their head. I can feel it. I'm super aware of it. Now, being this hyper aware, you're not 100% accurate. Sometimes I'm a high worry. I have anxiety. So again, I have to ask myself, is this me? Is this them? And then the maturing from belief to faith, what ended up happening, I said, Spirit, the next 45 minutes are for you. I am going to trust that everything that comes through me is for them. And that's how I remove myself from it. But it's the in-between times that I might have to be a little bit more discerning, right? Is this mine? Is this someone else's? If you ever want to bring Spirit closer, by the way, I never feel the deficit was with Spirit. What I feel happens is we're like a flashlight. Our awareness is like a flashlight. And sometimes our awareness will close in a bit. And that's what makes them feel further. It's us. I can't say that enough. You don't want to defer blame. Can I do something? Can I open up more? Thank you for, and if I only have this much to work with, Spirit, step in here for me. Here's a spotlight for you. I can open up my awareness through one breath and not thinking, dropping into my heart mind, which again will target the heart chakra. And I can open up my awareness, but I'm trained to do that. So essentially all I'm doing, because again, this is the space of awareness, all I'm doing in mediumship is I'm opening up almost like a peacock feather. And then I feel them come in, and I don't start until I feel the presence. Just taking a temp of the room, do you also experience what I experience when Spirit comes near? Can you tell their presence versus your own? The beautiful thing about dedicating time, as this place is a true foundation of your mediumship, I wonder what would happen in your readings if you replaced I don't know but with I know. Anyone feeling called out just by me bringing that in? You know why we do that, right? You know why. And there's I bring up this book, I brought it up before, but Tara Mohr, M-O-H-R, she's a Harvard business professor. She wrote a book called Playing Big. And chapter 8, I believe it was on communication. Changed my life. This one chapter, I'm like, I'll probably just pull out this book every couple of years just to read this one chapter on communication. She goes really deep into why women in particular communicate in a way that has like qualifiers or protective language padding things, this has to go. This actually doesn't even belong in mediumship, and it's a filter all in itself. If you were to pay attention, I want you to say this out loud. Okay, so you pay attention to your solar plexus, say, I don't know, but. And then say, what I know to be true is, and then go back to saying, I don't know, but. Do you sense a difference in your solar plexus around those two statements? This is our gut authority, gut instinct. This is the, when we ignore intuition, we start to have upper intestinal issues. Some things are really, truly just physical, and some things have an emotional and a spiritual component to it as well, like a layer to it. So that's why I kind of like bring it up. So even what I'm sensing is a bit of a qualifier. It can be. What I want you to pay attention to, because it's the intention, it's not what you say, it's why and how you say it. So you will know what is a qualifier or not. You'll know if it's to protect potential rejection. You'll know if it's to protect maybe inaccuracy. You'll know if it's protective versus flow. Is that fair to say? Just looking at the intention. I used to always say things like, because God forbid Virgos be wrong. Okay, I also had my astrology to work up against. But God forbid we be wrong. I used to say things like, I don't typically get this type of stuff, but I wonder if. Anyone else? Right? And it's like, it's great. But that is one of the things that can keep us from a real flow with spirit. And that is connected to throat chakra, yes, communication. But what we're trying to protect is our ego. So this is the center of ego maturation. This too has like great impact on the intention of why we're saying yes and no to things. And it does relate to our power and our authority. Spiritually, I want you to be aware of energy drains and sneaky, leaky energy drains. Like, even if they don't seem that big, somebody brought up, I think it was, and she's talking about like all these like little experiences that are starting to unfold into deeper understanding. This is the spiritual law of the compound effect. Yes, the compound effect works in finances, it has math to it, but the compound effect also works in these little experiences adding up to big change. So when it comes to things like self-esteem, confidence, self-empowerment, it's the micro choices that make the biggest difference. It's the everyday micro choices and the ones that are in congruence and alignment with what we say, what we feel, and how we act and behave. Those type of things build your self-esteem. Here's one thing I know to be sure about mediumship, and I know to be true about mediumship. And that is, there is over 8 billion people on this planet. We all bleed, we're all born, we all grow, we all go home. We all have very, very, very similar experiences. And one thing that we all share is we will all lose somebody one day. So in that way, mediumship is quite unique because everybody could benefit from it. Everyone has a need for it, right? Mediumship works off a need. And that is because all of us experience that loss at some point in our experience. But the truth of the matter is, I am not the medium for everybody. Right? There's been a couple times where the person that they wanted to connect with, I couldn't pick up. I'm like, I don't know, I can't force it. I'm just not their person for some reason. There are people who would probably find me a bit too much and annoying probably, or not spiritual enough. I've had somebody not hire me because I wore black. I had someone hire me because I wore black. You can't control any of that. But what I do feel is that there's this pressure that we have in this human experience in our society to like replicate, duplicate, carbon copy success. When if you work for different people in different cultures, different countries, different communities, their needs are actually very different than those who might need endless amounts of empirical evidence. So everyone has a need for mediumship, but everyone has a bit of a different need for mediumship. So the spirit world needs mediums being different from one another, which is why I teach you the way that I teach you. I teach you in an organic way, because I don't want to take you out of your nature. You were brought to this path because of your nature. And there is something unique about you in the way that you serve the spirit world, and you relay the energy from the spirit world in a way that is helpful, that is unlike the way anyone else can do it. Do you know what's unique about you?